Welcome back. Now, in the last video, we figured out how we can get the texel to the right of the current texel using our scene texel size and using some vector manipulations. We also got the left, bottom, and top texels. Now, as we saw in our presentation, we want to sum up all of the texels surrounding a given texel. So that includes the top, bottom, left, and right texels, but we also want the upper left, upper right, lower left, and lower right texels as well. So let's go ahead and get those also. Now we can do this by creating a new append node, so append vector, and if we take the u value, which is up here, from our mask R, and plug that down here into our append value for the A, and then we can take our V value from our mask G node and plug that in to the B value, then this is the vector U, comma, V. Now we can get our screen position and we can use an add node. And we'll add the screen position to this UV vector. Now since V increases as we go down, then this is actually the bottom right texel. So let's comment this and say bottom right texel. Now we can create a new append vector node, so right click and append vector. And for this one, let's go ahead and get our U value up here and drag that in to the A. And for the B, this time let's use negative V. So let's get that value and plug that in for the B, and we'll put a comment here and say U, comma, negative V. Now if we get our screen position and use an add node, adding our screen position to this U, comma, negative V, this gives us the top right texel. So let's comment this and say top right texel. Now let's create two more append nodes. So append vector, and I'm going to go ahead and comment this one and say negative U, comma, V. And I'll comment this last one and say negative U, comma, negative V. So let's get those values. So I'm going to scroll up, and here's our negative U value. I'm going to bring it down and plug it into the A for our negative UV. Then I'll come back up here and get negative U again and bring it down and plug it into the A for negative U, comma, negative V. Now for this one, we need the positive V. So let's scroll up and find positive V. Here it is. And we'll stick that into the B input value. And then for negative U, negative V, we need negative V. So right up here is negative V. Get that value and plug it into B for negative V. Now this is a little tedious, so I need you to take a lot of care. Be very careful when doing this. Make sure you get the correct values because there's a lot of chances to make mistakes here. So I want you to use this video as a guide when you're connecting these and make sure that you don't make mistakes. If something doesn't work later down the road, chances are you might have made a mistake at this stage because it's so tedious. Now I'm going to get our screen position and I'm going to paste it twice here. And I'm going to add two more add nodes. Now for this one, I'm going to add negative UV. And so this is going to the left and down since V goes down when it's positive. So this is going to be called bottom left texel. And then this last one is going left in the U and up in the V. So this is upper left texel. And make sure to plug in the result of this append node into B. Okay, so now we have a whole bunch of nodes. This is looking pretty horrific, but we now have the screen positions for all of the surrounding texels of the current texel. Now all that's left to do is get the custom depth values for each of these texels. Now up here we have our scene texture custom depth node. Copy that and paste it here. And our add node for the right texel here returns a 2D vector with UV coordinates for the right texel. So if we plug this into the input for scene texture custom depth, now we have the custom depth value for the texel with the given UVs. And if we bring out the color for this and use a mask and select component mask, and we mask out all but the red, then this gives us the custom depth value for the right texel. Now copy the scene texture custom depth and the mask and paste it down here next to left texel and plug in the left texel to the UVs, and this gives us the scene texture custom depth for the left texel. Now let's paste it in front of the bottom texel and plug it in. We'll paste it in front of the top texel, plug that in. We'll do the same for the bottom right texel and the top right texel, as well as the bottom left texel and the upper left texel. Now all of these return the scene texture custom depth value for each of these texels. And now we just need to add all of these up. So let's use an add node and add the right texel and the left texel. Now, just beneath it, we have our bottom and our top texel. Let's go ahead and add those together. And let's scroll down and we have our bottom right and top right texels. Let's add those together. And scrolling down, we have our bottom left and our upper left texels. Let's add those together. So now we have 4 different nodes. We have the right plus the left texel custom depth values. We have the bottom plus the bottom right plus the top right, and the bottom left plus the top left, or upper left I called it. Now we can take these 2 results here and add these together. So essentially we're just adding up a bunch of values here and then taking those results and adding those together. So these bottom 2 we're adding together, and now we're left with 2 add nodes, and we can simply add these together. So go ahead and add these. And the result of this is the sum. So let's give this a comment and say the sum of the custom depth values of all surrounding texels. Now I know you can't really see that, so I'm going to bring this out. So it says sum of the custom depth values of all surrounding texels. All of this was done just so that we can get the custom depth value of all the pixels around the given pixel in question. Now, just like we said in our presentation, if we take the custom depth values for all surrounding texels around the current texel, we'll have a really big value if the texel is not on an object. So we can subtract a very large value from this sum and still get a positive number. But if the texel is on an object in the custom depth buffer, and it's not near the border, so we don't have any large values, then subtracting a large value will give us a negative value. Well, we're going to use a very large value. Let's hold 1 down and click, and for this value, let's put a 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros. That's 10 million. We're going to subtract that from our sum here. So let's use a subtract node. You can hit the minus key and select subtract here. And now we're subtracting a large value from these. Now this value is going to be positive for texels that are not on objects in the custom depth buffer. But it'll be negative for objects that are in the custom depth buffer. Now let's drag off of this and type CEIL, which is short for ceiling. What this does is it takes a value and it rounds it up to the next whole number. And then we can take this result and use a clamp. Now let's think about what the ceil and the clamp nodes are doing. Ceil rounds it up to a whole number, and clamp makes sure that it's never less than 0 and never greater than 1. So if the value is negative, clamp will bring it up to 0. And if the value is greater than 1, clamp will bring it down to positive 1. Now, if the value is between 0 and 1, like 0.5, well, seal is going to round it up to 1. Seal always rounds it up. So the result is that whatever this value is, if it's negative, after seal and clamp, it's going to be 0. And if it's positive, after seal and clamp, it's going to be 1. So let's comment this. And what this is going to say is that 0 equals pixel is on a mesh. And 1 equals background plus border. Because remember, if a texel is on the border of a mesh, then it has neighbors that are off of the mesh, and those are going to give very high values. So these are the interior pixels we were talking about in our presentation. Here's a representation of the pixels on an object, and these gray pixels are interior pixels. All of their neighbors are black. These are what we have just obtained here in the editor. So we can add to this comment and say interior pixels. So what do we see if we hook this up into emissive color? Well, let's find out. Here's our PP highlight node. I'm going to go ahead and delete those nodes. And I'm going to take our PP highlight node and drag it down and plug our result into emissive color. Now I'm getting an error because it doesn't want our append nodes to not have an input. I was assuming that we'd get a 0 there, but we actually have to hold 1 and click and drag that in and actually feed in a 0. So let's go ahead and do that for each of these. So I'm going to hold and click, drag that in, and we're still getting errors for the rest of these. So I'm going to hold and click to drag this in, and hold and click to drag this in. Now if I hit apply, then everything looks okay. Now just to make this neat, let's include these 0 vectors in the comments for each of these. Like so. Okay, so we can apply this. And if we go back into our world, now we'll see that we're getting the interior pixels for the object. This is essentially the entire object minus the border. Now we can't see it, but the outline is also white. This is because even for pixels on the border, we're getting large values since the neighboring texels are background texels and causing the sum to be large. We're going to go ahead and conclude the video here, and we'll continue with this in the next video.